everyone. Today we're going to have a quick look at multiplying and dividing fractions. Now the good thing about multiplying fractions is once you've learnt that and you've figured that out, that dividing is just one extra step, okay? We're going to have a look at some examples that involve fractions and then also mixed numerals as well. Now, multiplying and dividing fractions sounds kind of scary, but it's really not, okay? When you're multiplying fractions, all you're doing is you're multiplying your two numerators together and you're multiplying your two denominators together. So in doing this, we've got 2 times 3 over 5 times 7, okay? Doing that's going to give us 6 over 35, and then you have a quick look to see if it can be simplified. Now, the good thing about multiplying fractions is that you can kind of simplify along the way through a process that we call cross-cancelling, and we'll look at some examples of that. But the main thing that you need to know is that you're just going to be multiplying across, okay? So for this example here, it would be 8 times 7 over 5 times 3, and that's going to end up giving us 56 over 15. Now, leaving your answer in improper form is the best because when it comes to multiplying and dividing, we always use improper form anyway. So leaving it that way just helps you avoid the mistake of then changing it into a mixed unless you are asked to make it into a mix, okay? Now, if we have a look at this example here, we've got 3/4 times 7 over 3. You can do the traditional multiply across and then simplify at the end, but we can also do something called cross-cancelling. So we're going to work through it in both ways. If we did it the traditional way, we would have 3 times 7 over 4 times 3. That would give us 21 over 12. And there we've got a common factor of 3. And so we would end up with 7 over 4. Now, doing it the normal way just helps you prevent any cancelling errors along the way. But if you can be intuitive about it, then you can just cross-cancel along the way and you don't have to worry about simplifying at the end. Following this same kind of process, I'm going to take this bit over here, just chuck it there for a second. We can see that we've got a 3 on the top of our fraction in the numerator and a 3 on the bottom. Now remember, all a fraction is a numerator divided by the denominator. So if I have 3 times something and then I just divide that by 3, I actually haven't done anything to the number. So if I go 3 times 7 and then I divide that by 3, I'm going to end up back at 7. So we take what we call a common factor here. So our common factor in this case was 3. We can just get rid of that. They cancel each other out. They actually both just become 1. And if I have 1 times 7 and 1 times 4, I'm just going to end up with 7 over 4. So all it really does is just save you some time. But if you're not confident enough to do it that way, then you go through the normal way and then simplify at the end. Now I'm going to write up another quick example here. Give it a go. There is some cross-cancelling that you can do. Feel free to pause it here and give it a go, but I'm going to walk through it using cross-cancelling, okay? Now, when we're cross-cancelling, it doesn't have to be the same number. It can just be two numbers that share a factor. So we would look for the highest common factor between two numbers. Now, when you cross-cancel, you can only go diagonally or up and down. Because going left to right, you're multiplying those numbers together. Because there's no division involved there, you can't then factorize them, okay? So we can only go diagonally or vertically. Now, I'm going to have a look at 7 and 5. If we have a look at 7 and 5, there is no common factor between the two. They're both prime numbers. So we can only divide them both by 1, which isn't very helpful. Now, looking at 8 and 5, same thing. Their highest common factor is 1. And 7 and 4, their highest common factor is 1 as well. So we can't do any cancelling there. Now, looking at 8 and 4, though, if I have a look at 8 and I have a look at 4, I know that the factors of 8 are 1, 2, 4, and 8. And the factors of 4 are 1 and 4. So my highest common factor in this case is 4. What that means is I can divide both of those by 4 to then end up with 2 over 5 times 7 over 1. All cross-cancelling really does is just give you the smaller numbers to work with. That means I'm going to have 2 times 7 over 5 times 1, which would give me 14 over 5. Now, if you went through and did 8 times 7, 5 times 4, if you kept simplifying, you would have eventually reached 14 over 5. Okay, so cross-cancelling just saves you some time there. Now, when it comes to multiplying fractions as well, you won't always get nice fractions. You might end up with some mixed numbers. The problem here being that a mixed number is, for example, 3 1/3 would be 3 plus 1/3. And so we can't just multiply 3 1/3 and 2 2/5. We have to make them improper first. Okay, so step number 1, whenever you have mixed numbers and you're doing multiplication or division, is to make them improper. So doing that, I'm going to have 3 times 3 plus 1 over 3 still, and 2 times 5 plus 2 over 5, going back to how we make things improper. That means I'll end up with 10 over 3 times 12 over 5. And we can do a little bit of cross-cancelling here. If we have a look at 3 and 12, for 3 and 12, their highest common factor is 3. So I can divide this by 3 and divide this by 3. And that will end up giving me a 1 on the bottom and a 4 on the numerator, which just makes it a bit easier already. Looking at 10 and 5, I've got the same thing. I've got a highest common factor of 5, which means that I can divide both of these by 5. And we end up with 2 on the numerator and 1 on the denominator. So now I have 2 times 4 over 1 times 1, which gives me 8 over 1, which simplifies on down to 8. Okay, so cross-cancelling just helps you get to that final simple answer quicker. Now, feel free to pause for the next one, but I will also walk through it, okay? Now, step number 1, make them improper, all right? I'm going to take 4 times 2 plus 1 for my numerator, and then for this second one, it'll be 1 times 5 plus 2 over 5. So now I end up with 9 over 2 times 7 over 5. And just having a quick look at those numbers, it doesn't look like there's any cross-cancelling that can happen. So I'm just going to go ahead and do 9 times 7, which is 63, over 2 times 5, which is 10. Okay, so multiplication, we just multiply across. Now, for division, I did tell you that it's just multiplication with one extra step. Okay, if I have 2 over 5 divided by 3 over 7, instead of multiplied like that first example was, we do 3 quick little steps, okay? Now, I like to make the acronym KFC, okay? And that stands for keep, flip, change, okay? We are going to keep the first fraction, but we're going to flip the second and change the division into a multiplication, okay? So what this ends up looking like is 2/5, and then I'm going to flip that second fraction to make it 7 over 3, and then multiply. And because you guys already know how to multiply, you'd end up with 14 over 15. Okay, so keep, flip, change. Same idea with this one here. Okay, I'm going to follow the exact same rules. I'm going to keep my first fraction the same, so 5 over 8. I'm going to flip my second fraction, make it 16 over 15, and then change this to a multiplication. Now, some of you would have seen that we can already cross-cancel some of these. If I divide 8 and 16 both by 8, and if I divide 5 and 15 both by 5. That means we're going to end up with 1 over 1 times 2 over 3, which gives us 2 over 3. Okay, so same as multiplying, but we're just going to keep, flip, change before we do anything else. Now, because dividing is just multiplying with that additional step, it does mean that when it comes to a mixed numeral, that we have to make them improper first. Okay, same sort of idea. So I'm going to make this one here 9 over 4, so 2 times 4 plus 1, and then I'm going to keep my division for now so I don't get lost in my working it, okay? 1 and 1/3 would become 4 over 3. I'm now going to keep, flip, change. Keep the first fraction, flip the second one, and change the sign. Now you need to make sure that you do keep flip change before anything else, because some of us might have tried to go and cross cancel that straight away. You go, oh, 4 and 4 is going to become 1 and 1. But once we actually KFC, the 4s are now in the denominator, and so we can't actually cancel them out. Now doing this, I would have 9 times 3 over 4 times 4, which gives me 27 over 16. Okay, would be my final answer, and I cannot simplify that anymore. Now, feel free to pause here if you'd like to give this a go by yourself, otherwise just stick with me. Same idea, we're going to make it improper first. So I've got 7 over 3, I'm going to keep the divided, and I'm going to go 7 over 4. I'm now going to KFC, so keep, flip, and change. And what we can see here is I've got a 7 on the numerator and a 7 on the denominator, so I can now cancel them out. We end up with 1 over 3 times 4 over 1, which is going to end up giving me 4 over 3. Okay, so when dividing, just remember keep, flip, and change, and cross cancel where you can if you're competent.